Well, hey, Greg, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Dan. Thanks for being here.
Well, this is exciting. It's the first episode of Distilled.
Yes, we are very excited about that.
Awesome. All right, well, let's jump in. So let's just to start, why do we call it distilled?
Well, the definition of distilled just simply means shortening something so only the essential meaning or the most important aspects remain.
Okay, yeah. Why is that important to get something down, to distill it down when it comes to church finances? Why take the time to do that?
Well, I know back when I was a pastor, I didn't have a lot of time, first of all. And the amount of time that I had simply to do financial stuff was even smaller than that.
Yeah, okay.
And so we thought it would be important to bring everything down into its critical components.
That's great. And I think that so many pastors even are overwhelmed and maybe don't even understand their finances. So not only do they not have the time, but they start to try to learn or to figure something out, and as soon as you open the first few pages of a book or start to research a topic, it just gets really complex really quickly.
Yeah, I think after having done this for a long time now, I think the quickest way to clear a room is just say, hey, we're going to talk about church finances next.
Great. Yeah, I can see it. Just people leaving right away. That's awesome. But why does it matter? Why does understanding your church's finances matter in the church?
I read a statistic the other day that scared the crap out of me, and it should really scare the crap out of everyone. It says by 2025, $100 billion is projected to be stolen from the church.
Wow.
So let that sink in a second. $100 billion. I'm not a true accountant by trade, but I did a little math on that, and it's over $250 million a day.
What? That's incredible.
So today, $250 million gone. Tomorrow, $250 million gone, and the next for 365 days.
And that's just, I mean, it's so discouraging to hear it, but it's even hard to comprehend the numbers and even think that that's possible.
I know, it gets even a little worse. What's given to the church towards missions or given away from the church towards missions is actually about the same as what's stolen from the church every year.
Wow. So
Just
you're
think
basically
of how much more we could do
yeah.
as the kingdom of God if that wasn't being defrauded.
You double the impact you have around the world that the church could have by simply not having money disappear.
Yeah, it's projected that about 7% is stolen.
Wow. Gosh, that's crazy. And so, as we think about this, understanding church finances, why is that important? How does that help a pastor? So many churches think, well, okay, that's a statistic that's out there, but that's not us, right?
The interesting thing about reading case studies about these things is almost everyone to the T says, I didn't think it could happen to us.
Yeah. So often it starts with someone that is trusted and is trustworthy, and they have no intention to steal from the church.
I don't think anybody wakes up one morning and says, I'm going to steal from my church.
Right, exactly.
There's a lot of options out there for me to steal from. I'm going to pick the one that's going to send me directly to heaven.
Yeah, exactly, right.
So that's probably not the case.
You're right.
God can still forgive you. But if you steal from a church, that's real low. It's real low.
But, the problem is that churches, church leaders, they don't understand their finances. And so they end up giving opportunities to people because they don't manage their finances well.
I think it's also about protecting and creating different kinds of controls that make it almost impossible for someone to steal, rather than just putting it out there where there's a lot of temptation.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so I'm reading this book, and it said they did this study, and it was with some college students, and they had them take a test, and the first one is they just took the test, Scantron kind of thing, multiple choice, and they submitted it.
Love those tests.
Yeah, don't we all, yeah. No, but they do that, and so then they got the average score for it, and they kind of that was their control. And then they had the people take their test, but then they had them come up and basically had them self-grade. They had the opportunity to change their answer without the person that was giving the test could tell. And so they ended up seeing that there was
essentially like an invisible eraser.
Exactly. So you could go and you're like, well, okay, it was C, not B. And it didn't jump from, okay, the average was 50%. It didn't jump to 100% grade. It went up to 60 or 70% relative numbers. And what they found is that people will kind of steal in small increments. And they did these different tests with it, but it all kind of came down to these people didn't intend to cheat, and they thought of themselves as honest. But when they were given the opportunity to be dishonest, little temptations came in.
I heard it once said, like, locks keep honest people honest. It doesn't keep the thieves out. Like, somebody can kick down your door.
Yeah.
But a law keeps somebody that usually is honest, still keeps them out.
Yeah, yes, exactly. So with church finances and controls, it's just so important that we have these locks, that we have accountability, we have multiple people, we have the right things so that we're not giving opportunity for honest people to be tempted into something dishonest.
Right.
That's great. Well, one other thing is just prioritizing dollars. Why is that so important that, we're talking about dollars being taken from the church, and we as a company are so passionate about helping churches prioritize their dollars towards mission. We hate to see things like fraud happen, right? But there's other things that are happening now with rising costs and people giving less or giving a smaller percentage. It's just a really important time to not only worry about fraud, but also to just say, we want to make sure every dollar goes as far as it possibly can, right?
Yeah, it's really about creating intentionality, making sure you're telling your dollar where it's going, rather than it just simply leaking out in multiple places. Fraud would just be one of those places it can leak out. But it can leak out in maybe not checking up on your subscriptions, and all of a sudden you've been paying for a subscription for years that you haven't been using.
Yeah.
We've heard it, people paying for people writing checks to missionaries that maybe aren't on the field anymore. There's crazy things like that happen where you end up spending money that really didn't go to a mission.
Greg, give it to me straight. What is one takeaway or action item that every pastor needs to take from this episode?
Well, I would say, since this is our first one, subscribe. Subscribe to Distilled, whatever platform you're on, wherever you're watching this. You'll get bite-sized tips to better steward your finances every episode.
Well, thank you for joining us, and we hope that you'll subscribe.